Joining us now from Richmond, State Senator Fairfax, Democrat, Scott Surovell. Senator, good to have you with us.
Hey, John, always good to be on your show.
Okay, so tell us what you're working on. Crossover day today, right? Big day. What's the top things on the Scott Surovell Fighting for You Every Day agenda?
You mean like the crossover calendar or the stuff I got going on like as soon as we're done? We
Both.
got a lot going on today.
Both.
We always save some of the most contentious bills for crossover day. We had a couple yesterday. We had a couple constitutional amendments which were kind of controversial yesterday. We had the Senator Norman's proposal to change how we restore felon voting rights. We had a couple redistricting constitutional amendments we heard yesterday, and those generated some lively debate. They were actually on the floor in the House for something like 10 or 12 hours yesterday. It was pretty brutal over there, but today's the big day for us. We've got a couple school choice bills. Those always generate some controversy. The governor usually vetoes them, but we'll pass them anyway. Mm-hmm. I think we'll have some fights about that. We have some lead water testing bills that got some no votes on them. I got a big bill coming up actually about coal ash pollution, and that's a bill that affects the entire state. We've got 5 big coal ash dumps all over Virginia, mm-hmm. 2 on the James, 1 on the Potomac, 1 on the Elizabeth River. These things are leaking all kinds of pollutants into our public waterways. And I've had a lot of sportsmen, a lot of people who boat, a lot of people who use our rivers, who get their drinking water out of groundwater, call me up and thank me for fighting for that. But the bill actually reported out of the Senate Ag Committee over Dominion Resources' objection, which doesn't happen very often. It's on the floor today. I expect to have 4 or 5 Republican members supporting me on that. So, I found that these water quality issues there's bipartisan interest in them. They're not partisan at all. And that your listeners have probably been reading a lot of stories. There's been stories all around the state about this coal ash pollution problem.
Yeah, it's a big issue.
Yeah, and so that's my bill, and that's on the floor today for final vote. What else do we got going on?
So the one bill which I was in favor of that got through the Senate, which if you have a marijuana possession conviction, you don't lose your license for 6 months. Is that going to get defeated in the House?
Probably. We've passed that. We've passed that every year now for, I think, at least the last.
Let me just ask you something. It passed the Senate yesterday 38-2. I mean, this is just common sense legislation. Somebody gets stopped for marijuana possession. Okay, bad things happen. It's breaking the law. They get a fine. They have to go to court. We get that. But how does taking their driver's license away for 6 months, how does that make any sense? And it passed the Senate 38-2.
Yeah, it doesn't. But what happened is that I think what happened is that the federal government required us to put that condition on all drug convictions or drug-related sentences about 20 years ago. Mm-hmm. And I'm not sure that requirement is still there anymore, but that's how it originally got on there. And, there's some folks on the other side who feel like, the whole tough on crime crowd who feels like, there needs to be some consequence for your behavior, even if a charge is continued for dismissal. And, that's the only way I can really describe it. It's a whole tough on crime thing. Another bill we've passed, similar issue kind of, we've passed for probably 4 or 5 years in a row now, is to amend Virginia's misdemeanor felony threshold. Virginia, the threshold between misdemeanors and felonies is $200. It hasn't changed since 1981. And the Senate now has passed it, I think, 4 or 5 times to raise it to $500. Virginia has the lowest misdemeanor felony threshold in the United States. Mm-hmm. Ken Cuccinelli, has said that he thinks this is all part of felony creep, the government sort of over-felonizing conduct. And
agreed. It's
highly inefficient and just needs to change. And, again, I got some conservative colleagues in the House who are on the criminal subcommittee who just feel like, any kind of step that makes things a little less punitive is not being tough on crime, and they don't like that. So that's a argument we've been having now for years, and we're going to continue to have it. So there's a couple bills like that where we pass them every year and they die in the House criminal subcommittee. Probably the same thing will happen this year, is my guess.
I think it's going to die again. Okay, let's get to Senator Dick Black's vote bill yesterday. making sanctuary cities liable for crimes committed within a locality. So basically, LeVar Stoney just made Richmond a sanctuary city. By the way, I think that was a terrible movie made off the bat, but that's why I was for Joe Morrissey. Just saying. So Stoney makes Richmond a sanctuary city. Whatever, LeVar. Your city's bankrupt. Nobody can get an education in there. You got rampant crime, and your first act is a sanctuary city. Unbelievable. Separate issue. So this gets in 21-19. But Sasol said, well, why would the taxpayers be on the hook for this?
Yeah, there's a million different problems with this legislation, but basically what Senator Black's bill says is that if somebody who's not legally present in the United States commits some sort of a tort, basically hurts someone, like a car accident or beats somebody up or steals money, anything that you could be sued for civilly, and the locality where it occurs in is a sanctuary city, then the locality is liable for that individual's action. So, for example, if somebody's not legally present, runs into somebody on the street, runs into a pedestrian, runs into a car, the locality has to pay for that. If they embezzle money from an employer, the locality has to pay for that. If they punch somebody in the face, the locality has to pay for that. If two people who are not legally present get in some fight, the locality has to pay the one person who's not legally present for the other one assaulting them. I mean, that's basically what the bill says. I'm not sure it's really a serious piece of legislation. I have a hard time. the governor's going to veto that. There's no way it's going to get. There's going to be enough votes to override a veto on that. And I appreciate, Senator Black's unhappy about the immigration issue, but from my point of view, John, continuing to sort of federalize these immigration issues is, I think it's great news for the Democratic Party because it really will get a lot of people interested in state politics who weren't interested before. But these are really federal issues. I don't know why we're talking about the state level.
Look, I didn't agree with Black's bill just for that reason. I think that being able to sue cities is ridiculous. I think that if the federal government gives money to Richmond, and the federal government says, well, we have this policy, we don't want sanctuary cities, and LeVar Stoney says, nah, screw you, I'm going to have a sanctuary city because that's what my people want, then they have the right to pull whatever funding that they provide Richmond. And then the voters at Richmond will have to decide if they think this is a good idea or a bad idea. When Stoney has to cut services or raise taxes because he's not getting the money from the federal government, because he's not following their policies, then fine. Then to me it's open. But being able to sue different people in litigation, and the thing is a mess. Coupled with the fact that it gets vetoed anyway, right? Mm-hmm. So it's a complete waste of time. Just a segue here. Tom Perriello raises, he said, in the first month $1 million.
I knew you were going to ask about this.
Wow, because we were talking about this last time you were on. It was like, it's rough. Northam's going to win, 65-35. I don't think so. This guy just raised $1 million in a month. I think this is going to be a horse race, man.
Yeah, John, we'll see. I was impressed by his announcement, but I'll tell you, I was partly impressed, but if you read between the lines and you look at it carefully, it's not quite as big as it might seem. First of all, I thought I read in one of the newspaper articles reporting it that he had, I think, 2,500 total donations. And so if he's raised over $1 million in 30 days and only has 2,500 donations, to me that says he's probably got, one or two people that have written some six-figure checks.
Right.
And only 2,500 donations is not, that doesn't to me show a sort of a big sort of grassroots base of support. Whenever I look at a finance report, I always look at two things. I always look at sort of how much money somebody brought in, the total amount of cash, and I look at the number of donations. Mm-hmm. And because if some candidate, I even look at this for House of Delegates, State Senate, local candidates, whatever. If they've got a lot of little small checks, that to me says they have a really deep base of support in their community, that they mean business. But if somebody has to rely on a lot of big checks from a couple people to get big money, then to me that just says that they don't have the base, they don't have the grassroots, and so. I'm really interested to see the report when it comes out April 17th. But it does, to me, having that kind of money does enable him to communicate, and it enables him to have some kind of a field staff. If he can put it together fast, he doesn't have a lot of time. He's only got 4 months, and if you're going to have a real field operation, you got to get those people out ASAP. But it does allow him to communicate, and this is going to be a big primary because not only because we have the good governor and LG going. But I think I've counted so far something like between 7 or 9 Democratic House of Delegate primaries.
Really?
There's 2 incumbents that pulled primaries, and there's like another 6 or 7 primaries in open seats, mainly in Northern Virginia, but I believe there's a couple in Hampton Roads or one or 2 in Hampton Roads. And, the Democratic Party is really jacked up right now. And there's a lot of people that are, running for office because they're so upset. And, we have 3-way primaries and some seats against incumbent Republicans. I mean, I haven't seen that in years.
Give me the 2. Do you know offhand the 2 Democratic incumbents that drew primary challenges?
Yeah, Delegate Levine in Alexandria. The City of Alexandria School Board Chairman is running against him. And I heard a couple of days ago that Delegate Herring might have had somebody declare against her, although I haven't read it in the papers yet, but I thought I heard that. And then there's the other primaries in the seats against. Well, there's one primary in an open seat. Delegate Dudenheffer's announced he's not running again.
Right.
And the others are against incumbent Republicans.
I tell you what, people are jacked up. It's going to be interesting. Senator Bill Howell yesterday or 2 days ago said, "Hey, I got an idea. I don't really like what Mark Herring did at the Attorney General's office. Look, we got state police that need money. We got all these employees that need raises. And so he took the forfeiture money, gave his people raises. I'm going to cut his budget by $500,000. Is that appropriate or just retaliation?"
No, it's retaliatory. I don't think Howell did. I think it was in the Senate amendments. I don't think it was in the House amendments, or at least if it is, I didn't read that in the paper. But I know Senator Obenshain was pretty upset about it. He gave a floor speech about the issue about maybe 3 weeks ago.
Right.
But basically the way it works is the Attorney General collects a lot of money every year through litigation. A lot of it comes from these sort of big multi-state class action settlements. Mm-hmm. We had the mortgage settlement a couple of years ago where Virginia got $67 million. Stuff like that. There's a lot of pharmaceutical settlements where Medicaid, is defrauded. And but the budget only allows the AG to carry over $1 million from year to year, and it gives the AG like 100% discretion over what to do with that money. And it's fully within the AG's authority or permission, I think, to. Actually, let me put it this way. I thought it was fully within his purview to use that money for any purpose he wanted. I read in the paper that there's some kind of federal restrictions on it, and the Department of Justice gave some kind of
advice,
permission or advice about how to do it otherwise. But our state employees have been creamed. I mean, they haven't gotten decent raises, and they've only gotten like 2 raises in 7 years.
Right.
And when you don't give people raises, they start leaving, and I think he's doing the right thing, but we'll see how that plays out. I think it might just be a shot across the bow, but we'll see.
Well, look, I think you've got to raise the pay of the Capitol Police because of the state police, because, Scott, look, this is reality. They're leaving.
The state police is out of control.
Leaving. Yeah, it's not enough money.
I talk to these guys every day when I'm in court, and I've been talking to them a lot lately when I'm in court. I mean, we were turning over something like 12% of the state police a year, given the pay situation they were dealing with. And I had troopers, the taxpayers invest about $55,000 in every trooper to get them out on the street.
Right. And
basically we had is guys that were doing their 3-year commitment, and then they'd immediately leave and go to Fairfax or Prince William. I talked to one trooper who did protective services for CIA. Others told me they could go down to Texas, and first-year troopers in Texas make $65,000 a year. And you can't blame somebody for doing that for their family.
No, you can't.
The state's paying them $38,000. Then go down there and almost double their income.
Yep.
I mean, so.
So, look, you guys have to do something. Okay, let's get to Airbnb. I know this is another time it gets through. You know where I stand.
Today.
You know where I stand on this. I mean, look, I'm all for freedom of everything. But I don't think the government should be picking the winners and losers. And what they're doing right now is if I were to buy a hotel in any area, whether it be Chesapeake or Fairfax, and I'm a franchisee. I got to pay all these taxes, go by all these rules, right? And somebody can open up an Airbnb. They can have a 5-room home, 2 doors down, open it up. They don't have to pay anything. They don't have to fill any paperwork out. They don't pay taxes. Plus, it subjugates the local zoning rules of various towns. I mean, I think the whole thing is a scam. And I think that people, if they're behaving illegally, ought to be fined. How about you?
Well, I mean, you're partly right about that, John. If somebody's renting their property out on short-term rentals for more than 30 days a year, then they're required to register and pay poll taxes,
Right.
pay hotel taxes, and all that. And the problem is that local governments are not enforcing it. And they're complaining about it, but they're not enforcing it. And so there's a little bit of crying wolf there going on with the local governments. But we have a bill that's poised to pass today. It really doesn't do a whole lot. Senator Norman's bill, it really doesn't do much anything. It just sort of confirms the existing landscape. Mm-hmm. But I think if these Airbnbs, if you've got people who are treating these properties as hotels and they're renting for more than 30 days, they absolutely should pay their taxes and follow the rules and all that. But I also think that localities should not be authorized to do outright bans on Airbnbs in their jurisdiction. I mean, I think as property owners, people have rights to use their property as they see fit. And if for example, I want to rent out my house for the inauguration or some special event, maybe there's some big down Hampton Roads, maybe there's some big sporting event, you want to rent your house out for a couple weekends, I don't think that the local government should be able to prohibit that either. And so I think there's a balance we need to strike in there. But we'll see how it plays out. The bill last year basically told local governments they couldn't do anything. But this one is very different. This one basically tells local governments they can do anything they want. And
you either have local government zoning laws or you don't. And if you don't like the zoning laws, put in new supervisors or new city council people or new mayors. But what bothers me about this isn't like me renting out my home for 2 weeks because an event is coming to my area. What you have is these Airbnb, you got people renting out 5 and 6 rooms on a short-term basis with transient people coming in, and you violate the zoning laws. If I were to buy a home in a specific area, I'm buying it based on what the zoning laws are. And so if I want to go buy a hotel or franchise one, I got to follow the rules. And so, look, I'm all for property rights and free enterprise and all that, but it's not fair to the people that have the hotels, and it completely tramples on local zoning laws. And Scott, again, if you don't like the zoning laws, you have a mechanism to change them. Put new city council people in. Tell me on this issue why I'm wrong.
Well, I don't think the government has complete and unfettered discretion to tell you, what you can or can't do with your property. And if you're talking about neighbors doing things that you don't like, there's lots of different other ways neighbors can do things you don't like. I mean, as an attorney, I have people call me all the time because somebody's got a dog running on their property, or somebody won't, keep the tree roots from their neighboring tree out of their sewer, or somebody's like fixing cars in his backyard, or somebody's not keeping his house up, or they're putting the shed in the wrong place, or has loud parties. Mm-hmm. There's a lot of different things that a neighbor can do to make somebody else mad, and they say, I didn't move to this neighborhood for X, Y, or Z. And so, but as I said, John, I think if somebody is using their property as basically as a hotel, if they're renting it out for like more than 30 days a year, then a whole different set of rules kick in. I got no problem with that. But what I do have a problem with is the government telling me that I can't use some service to rent my house like 4 days a year, or 2 weekends a year, or something, or 3 weekends a year, something like that. To me, that goes a little bit too far. That's why I think we need to have some balance in this thing. But I agree with you. I know in Virginia Beach, for example, there's a lot of sensitivity for this because you have a lot of folks wanting to come to the beach,
right?
And you got some pretty big houses that are down there. Is it Sandbridge? Is that what it's called?
Yes.
You got these massive houses, and you could turn one of those into a hotel pretty easily, and that's never what they were intended for. And I get it. I get wanting to control that. That makes sense to me. But and I have constituents. I have some constituents that are telling me that they're convinced that one of these houses in the neighborhood is being used to film pornographic movies or something. and they're telling me they're seeing TV cameras going in and out of the house and everything, and I can understand why they're concerned about that.
Well, that's the thing, but this is why I've got the best radio show in America, because here is Democratic Senator Scott Surovell on the air arguing in favor of limited government and property rights, and the conservative host John Fredericks arguing on behalf of local zoning and taxes. Only on the John Fredericks Show can this possibly happen. Scott Surovell, the new champion of limited government, the little guy, and free enterprise, and Fredericks in favor of the local zoning laws and higher taxes. Only on the John Fredericks Radio
At your service,
Network.
John.
Have
Okay.
a great day.
All right,
On
you
this
too.
issue, though, sir, you're wrong. But I'll see you tomorrow.
Okay.